All right. All right, everybody. My name is Justin Reitman from Tech Shredders. We are a local company in Roseland, New Jersey that we do on-site hard drive shredding and electronic recycling. And today we are hosting a panel, Thriving in the New Work Reality, with Doug Ron from IND, Vince Finaldi from Teledata, and Scott Vicari from Fort Access to uncover and really highlight some of the best practices with working from home. What are the new realities since everybody has kind of been sheltering in place since March, and what the future holds as some people start to come back into the office, and some of the best practices that we can take out. I know there's been a lot of stress with working from home, and I wanted to put together this panel to really highlight ways that we can kind of overcome some of the fatigues and some of the challenges that we all face. So how the panel will work is each person will have about 7 minutes or so to talk about a specific topic area. And then there will be a little bit of Q&A, maybe a question or two. And then at the end, after everybody goes, we're going to open it up for a bit more robust Q&A. I really do want to make this an interactive webinar where people can ask questions. If this is your first Zoom webinar, there are a couple things you can do. You can either ask a question in the Q&A, or if it's easier, just to do it in the chat. Wherever the questions will come from, I will collect them. Alternatively, if you want to email me at justin@techshredders.com, I'll throw that in the chat, and I'll just be monitoring my email throughout. And I do also want to recognize Homeless Solutions. They are a nonprofit in Morris town in Morris County. And as a way of giving back during this time, we came up with this idea for each person who attends. So right now we're up to 18 people, which is great, and it's only rising. We are going to be donating $5. So as people come in, we'll continue to kind of take note. And I do thank everybody for joining the webinar. Now, right before we jump in,
yeah, I want to teach something, right? $5 per person per company on the panel.
Yeah,
it's not just $5.
that is a good point. Now we're donating more than $5. Appreciate that. Yeah. So I was actually, ironically enough, with everything that was going on, I saw a tweet yesterday from Aaron Levine, who is the CEO of Box. And Box is an online storage company. And I thought it really dovetailed nicely with what the goal of this webinar is, which is to highlight some of the best practices. And essentially what he was saying is that now more than ever, with everything that is going on, the success of your company is going to be linked to your IT strategy. And having made a lot of investments in prior years, companies are going to be on a good path. And being able to make quick decisions today, a lot of people are playing catch up, but it's essentially a necessary. And I think today what we want to do is really highlight some of these IT strategies. So in terms of how the panel will work again, first we're going to have Doug Ron from IND speak. He's going to talk about how to get the most out of working from home. Vince from Teledata will then talk about voice over IP and why it matters. And then at the end, Scott will talk about cybersecurity issues in the age of COVID. And at the end of each person's section, we'll have a brief Q&A if you have a question or two that we'll ask. And then at the end, after Scott goes, we will do an extended Q&A. So without further ado, I do want to kick it off and have Doug Ron from IND start it off.
All right, thanks, Justin. Good morning, everybody. And that that tweet you mentioned, Justin, is so timely. I actually, it's kind of sad to say, but this whole situation, I haven't gotten more compliments and testimonials from clients and just people that we've provided help to, even who are not our clients right now in these times, getting them stuff that they needed to get working and working effectively. Anyway, so let's jump in. Got 7 minutes, so let's get to that.
I won't hold you to the time too much.
Yeah. All right, let me jump over here. Get to the screen here. All right. Well, we're not already on Q&A. No. There we go. All right. Just going to cover three, I think, in every business, there's three key areas: products, process, and people. People being the most important. Well, we're going to start because people ask me a lot about products these days, like Zoom. Should I use Zoom? Should I use Microsoft Teams? I've heard all these security concerns with Zoom. What is it? What's the good stuff? My opinion, and it's just my opinion, is that Zoom's done a lot of stuff. They've addressed. They got a lot of bad press. There were some really interesting things happening. I'm sure everybody's heard about Zoom bombing, basically like photo bombing. People are just jumping into the Zooms where they know the formula for the Zoom ID number, and they just jump in. But now that there's a password, it's not really that much of an issue. And although Microsoft Teams is much more secure, the real question comes down to how many people do you need on screen for video? So Zoom out of the box is like 20 people simultaneously on video on screen. Microsoft Teams just moved to 3x3. So 9 people on the screen. They say that's changing quickly. So we use Microsoft Teams, but today for company-wide meetings, we use Zoom because we want everybody to be on screen at the same time. I will talk about that a little bit more around when we get more into the people, but it's just important to have that interaction today if you can't be face-to-face. So, around process, and all of these they all overlap, right? So process and people, they all have to do with, just us getting efficient with everything that we do remote. Couple things about working remote. We sent out a notice early on for people just to expect bandwidth issues. And all the providers, FiOS and everybody, they sent out notices that this is unprecedented. They haven't had such bandwidth demands. In fact, a lot of the providers, Netflix, Spotify, Pandora, they all cut down their quality level because they knew that there was an overwhelming demand. So just expect that you might have some bandwidth issues, and maybe just not encourage everybody to be streaming all the time. A couple things to keep your sanity when working from home or remote, period, is just to find a quiet spot, right? It's not always possible. And therefore, if it's not possible, noise canceling headphones are really good. I think today, 50% of the people when I'm on a Zoom have their headphones in. Right, Vince? Because you want to not miss a couple words, and you want to be engaged. And that's really, again, about people. You want to be engaged. And talking about process, for those of us that are business owners and managers, in the process that's important is engaging and connecting with the individuals. And if you're a direct report, it's also not simple to be remote all the time. So this is different. I'm not just down the row from my boss or from my colleagues. So what going remote means and working from home means there's a little onus on everybody that's different today than it was before. you need to over communicate. You need to make sure that they might not see you every day, but they need to know what you're achieving, right? So let people know, there's a whole thing about personality profiles, and some people it's not natural. And for those people, working remote is somewhat of a challenge because they're not used to being a self-promoter and a cheerleader and telling their boss, hey, I did this. Even if he might not see it, it's important to over communicate, because as the guy from the Shark Tank said yesterday in a post that he put out, what bosses aren't telling you right now is that this is a challenge for everybody, but people that succeed in a couple weeks, when the PPP ends for a lot of companies, there's some people that are going to be sitting back and saying, we're going to have to think about the workforce a little bit because, we're a little down. So what's going to happen? And the guy Damon or Raymond from Shark Tank, he said, what your boss isn't telling you now is that he's looking for you to be over communicating. Make sure your boss knows exactly what you're doing, because when those conversations come up, you don't want it to be, I don't know what he's been doing for the last 3 weeks. So a couple more tech things about working from home. I'm sure Vin will talk about this, but Wi-Fi versus hardwired. If you can plug into your router at home, you're going to have a much more stable and faster connection than if you do Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi just inherently is slower than plugging in. And just invest in reliable technology. A good webcam, a decent processor. We're in the process right now where a lot of our clients are going through the next phase, which is, okay, this is going to be a little while, or we're not putting the genie back in the bottle. Not everybody's coming back to the office. So let's make sure that they have the right stuff at home, which now means a little bit better of a laptop than they would have bought previously for the occasional remote use. Now it's every day. And then one last thing, I just want to share a quick tidbit. If you're on Zoom and you're in one of these calls, frequently where you're muted for, keeping everybody else sane and they don't want to hear your dog or your kid come in, you could simply hit the space bar or hold down the space bar. While you hold down the space bar, it'll unmute you. And then when you let go, you're back to mute. So it's a little trick that a lot of people don't know, but it would be nice if we get more people to do that, because I can't tell you how many meetings I'm in every single day and everybody's like, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. It's just every day. And one little bonus thing here today, people, we're all on these meetings. I mean, we're having them all the time. And I encourage everybody that's a manager or an owner to have daily video check-ins with their team for the engagement level. We do it every day for every person in our company. And it makes a big difference. Checking in, any roadblocks, what are they working on, and requesting them to tell us what was success yesterday. And so since we're on these all the time, and the people aspect, we're all still human. So it's worthwhile to have some fun. And there's a lot of different things that you can do with Zoom, to have some fun instead of, just the humdrum, Zoom meetings. So I recommend, a couple different things that you can do. There's some apps out there that will, allow you to do some fun stuff. So if anybody's interested, I'll share some of that later on. Giddy up.
Thanks so much, Doug. That was really great. We do have a couple of questions. One that came in was, while a lot of people have been on Zoom calls all the time, maybe 2, 3, 4 a day, are there any strategies or techniques for how to kind of deal with some of this fatigue from all these calls?
That's an interesting question. So I read an article recently about Zoom fatigue, and it it tends to be a real thing, and it doesn't matter what product it is. And it's nothing about staring at the computer, but what it is actually it's looking at yourself. So one of the recommendations from psychologists, if you notice that you're tired all the time, minimize the amount of people that you're trying to focus on, and particularly hide yourself. It's an option in all the packages to hide your own video, because your brain is constantly looking at yourself and judging your video to make sure that you're looking as good as you can. The other thing is, take a couple minutes before, get yourself set up, get your audio, and make sure your camera. And the best place for your camera is slightly up from your view. So you have to slightly put your head up. And the reasons for that is you naturally open your eyes wider, and and nobody wants to see what's going on in your chin area and below. From the top, slightly top down is the best view. And lighting is important, but by having your eyes a little wider open, everybody feels like you're more engaged, and you might be actually.
Great. And before we throw it over to Vince, one other question that came in is, do you have a name for the app that you used to put on all those cool hats?
Oh yeah. So that app is an app called SnapCam, SNAP Cam. And I think it's a throwback from Snapchat, but you can load it on a PC or on a Mac, and you point your camera to just SnapCam instead of your default camera, and it just goes through that filter.
Great. Thanks so much. We'll come back with some more questions after Scott finishes. And now I want to send it over to Vince.
Thanks, Justin.
Great. I just need you to stop sharing, Doug.
Oh, all right. All right, let's get out of here.
Thanks. Just give me 1 sec, guys. I have a really basic PowerPoint. So hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? My name is Vincent Finaldi, and this is just a picture of what working from home really looks like.
Yep.
So if you zoom in, you'll see my toddler named Leo pulling out my mouse. Once in a while I forget to close the office door, and then he just inevitably comes in and just, does whatever it is a 2-year-old does. And then you'll also notice I'm not wearing any socks. I'm not wearing any sneakers. So I think most of you can relate out there as to what's really going on at home. But bear with me. So again, my name is Vincent Finaldi. Throughout this presentation, if you'd like to learn more, you could just email me after, vin@telecloud.net. So I'll keep it really brief about me or my company, and then we'll dive into how some tips to help you related to phone technology. So we're a business in Union, New Jersey. We've been at this since the 80s, and we help New Jersey businesses solve problems with VoIP phone technology. And more than ever with COVID, we've had more client demand for on-the-fly help than we've ever experienced as a company ever. So we've learned a lot over the last 3 months. And to give everyone a little bit of insight, so what the heck is VoIP? And how has the phone industry changed rapidly? Now, most of you on the call, of course, if you've ever worked in or for a business, everyone has had a phone on their desk. That's been around since I believe the 70s. So we're all used to physically making and receiving calls, checking voicemail. But what's really changed is the phone industry now became way more software based, and the ability to route calls anywhere has really proven to be helpful, especially for remote working or for traveling. So I boiled it down to 5 key changes in the industry that for any of you folks on this webinar might find value from within your own business. So before I dive right into the 5, so put yourself in the shoes of a client or a patient or a customer. So if you're looking for a product or service, you're going to go onto a website. I just happened to Google Weinstein & Klein because one of the attendees was on the call, so I figured why not make it personal. So if I'm looking for someone's services like this law firm, All I'm going to do is go here, Google it, and then I'm going to call that phone number. From a customer perspective, that's all they're going to do. And then they want to be able to speak to someone. So this is how the phone industry changed. It doesn't matter anymore what number is called. It can get to the right person anywhere, whether they're working remotely, whether they're in Florida, whether they're overseas. It doesn't matter anymore. So we're not, the industry always used to be, you had to be glued to your desk with a phone, but now that's all changed. So I'm going to give you the top 5 ways I believe this has been helpful. And at the end, if you have a couple questions, feel free. So number 1, the remote phones work over Wi-Fi phone at home. And the brand I happen to write down is called Polycom. It's a very mainstream manufacturer of phone equipment. So any business person can take a phone home, plug it into an electrical outlet, connect it over Wi-Fi internet, or wired it directly to the modem. And then their extension follows them. So if someone calls you at your extension, whether it's 100 or extension 205, that call is going to route to your home phone, and you can make and receive a call from home just like you have for years at the office. This was a big game changer for us with COVID. We set up more Wi-Fi phones in 2 months than we ever have in 2 years. So that's number 1. The phones work from anywhere there's internet. Number 2 is the ability now for soft phones. So what a soft phone is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's software that's a phone. So if you happen to be traveling, or you're on your laptop, or you have an iPad, you can make and receive calls right from your laptop. And what's nice about this, it's very easy access, because every user has their own portal, and you can communicate with coworkers, you can communicate with clients, and it's going to show the business caller ID of your company, not your personal cell phone number or personal information. So this is another effective strategy into communicating with clients and coworkers. The third that's changed, I would use the term the mobile app / the ability to text message. So we have a lot of clients in very different industries. Some are doctors, some are attorneys, some are just, they might be in the B2C industry where they service HVAC systems. So we run the gambit of different industries we cater to. But the beauty of it is the technology helps any industry. You just have to apply it to yourself. So what's changed is now everyone has one of these guys, an iPhone or a Droid. All you have to do with a voice over IP phone system is download the app that comes with your service provider. So for us, the app is called TeleCloud, but for you, it might be different. It depends on who services your account. And you're going to download an app, and now you can make and receive calls right from your mobile app, just like you're at the office. So if I'm a customer and I call your extension, it could route right to your cell phone. So you never have to miss a client call anymore, assuming you don't want to miss the call. These things can be still programmed. So if you want to work from 8 to 5, you'll take calls on your cell phone. But if it's 8 o'clock at night, the calls can go to voicemail. So you don't have to be interrupted at all hours of the day. Taking it a step further is the ability to text message. We've gotten a ton of requests from our clients that they want the ability to text message customers and receive text messages, but not on their personal cell phones, more from a corporate perspective. So I don't know if anyone on the call has a direct dial line. You might have heard the term DID or private line or direct dial line. What now is available with 2020 technology is you can enable text messaging on your business private line. And if a customer were to text message you, it would come into your mobile app or your soft phone, and you could communicate with customer via text. And what's nice from a corporate perspective, it's all managed and tracked and recorded. So if you ever have to go back to it, it's all there. And it's just not on your personal cell phone, which, as you know, at times can get dicey, depending on what industry you're in, especially if it's medical or legal or financial. So that has been a game changer the last few months with these apps. A couple more things I want to touch upon, and then I'll kick it back to Justin to, if there's any questions, is on-the-fly conference calls and video. So the industry used to be very separate. Zoom, I think of the video collaboration companies, Zoom, I think Blue Jeans or A company called BlueJeans is out there, Cisco, WebEx, Microsoft. So the video platforms and phone systems used to be separate animals, but now they've converged faster than ever. It was predicted that COVID sped up the telecom industry by 5 years because now clients are asking us, hey, I want the ability to get on conference calls with coworkers, but I also want to see them. So clients are asking for a combination of the phone system and Zoom to be one platform. And all that technology is available now within the industry from many different companies. So this has been very helpful to stay in collaboration with coworkers and with customers for, a 4 or 5, 6 person conference call on the fly while seeing the people at the same time. And the last, I use the term application that's helped. Anyone on the call, if you work for a bit, so I hate using telecom terms, but the term is called call center. So if you're a business that receives a lot of inbound calls, where you receive 50, 100, 200 inbound calls a day, there's a high probability you have call center. But what's changed now is with people working from home, the need for cloud-based call centers has been more relevant than ever. So if you have, for example, 8 people in a service department and they all receive 10 to 20 calls a day, what a cloud-based call center does is it allows the calls to get to the right person at the same time. And the manager of that department can see real-time information of how many calls came in, how many calls went out, how many missed calls there were. So in a nutshell, there's a lot of tools available for you from a company like mine and companies all over the country. We tend to cater to smaller businesses from about 20 employees to 250 employees. So we really like the small market in New Jersey, but there's companies out there, RingCentral, 8x8, Vonage, Nextiva, that have done a really good job. They seem to cater to larger clients, but all this technology is available. It's just a question of finding the right company to partner with that you can have a good relationship with and service you properly. So I'll kick it back to Justin, and I hope you found some of this helpful. And if there's any questions, please let me know.
Great, thank you so much, Vince. One question that came in is, for a company that is in that 20 person sweet spot, how much does a VoIP system cost?
That's a great question. So in short, it's a voice over IP in the industry has become a per user per month model. So you might have used the term SaaS model, software as a service, hardware as a service. So if you take just round numbers, $25 per person in your company per month, that'll be the total. So if you have about 20 people times $25, that's about a $500 a month total. That's going to get you close to what a voice over IP phone service costs. There's other details that I don't want to get into because it's too heavy, like wiring infrastructure and IT hardware. But for the sake of simplicity, if you take $25 per user per month, that's going to get you close to what a voice over IP phone service costs, and your existing costs go away on whoever you're paying for dial tone currently.
Okay. And a question that came in as a follow-up, is it a very long process if you're using like a wired phone now to get set up to I guess almost move your phone number to a voice over IP system?
It's a great question. It depends on the size of your organization. If you're, I would use the term under 30 people, you could turn this around. It's probably going to be a 3 to 4 week process because of the nature of a new project and a new client. There's a porting process of porting your numbers. There's an onboarding process of building the phone system accurately. But I would use on a short 3 to 4 weeks is probably the quickest it's going to happen. It could be up to 8 weeks if you're a more complex, larger company that has more, I would use the word requirements and sophistication.
Great. And we will have a time at the end of the webinar to do a little bit more Q&A as well. All right. Now I wanted to bring in Scott Vicari from Fort Access to talk about cybersecurity.
All right. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, guys. Let me just share out my screen real quick. Okay. So my name is Scott Vicari. I'm from Fort Access. I'm one of the partners of Fort Access. We've been in business a few years. And our focus is on providing cybersecurity solutions to small and medium-sized businesses. So similar to what Vince said, our sweet spot is anywhere from 20 users up to 250 is where we normally fall. Today, what I wanted to talk about is what you can do from a company perspective to protect yourself when we're all going remote now. So everybody's using different devices, they need different applications, it could be a little chaotic. So trying to help establish guidelines for working from home. So the first thing that we advise our clients is number one, what devices is your staff going to be utilizing? Are you going to supply them with a device such as a laptop or a desktop or a tablet that they can work from home, or are they going to be using their own PC? Some of the things that have come up with our clients during this recent pandemic is a lot of them were not prepared for this, just like kind of no one was. And they wound up, a number of them are using employee PCs at home. Some of the things to take into consideration is the number one is can the computer even do what they need to do from a business perspective, and from a security perspective, which is my biggest focus, is it running, is it a security risk even being connected to my company's data and my corporate network? Is the risk worth the reward? So some of the things to ask is, what operating system is that device running? Is it running Windows 10? Is it running a supported operating system like Windows 10? Is it running something legacy like a Windows 7? Which, if you're not sure or not aware of, Windows 7 was dropped from Microsoft support earlier this year, meaning that there's no more security updates for it, and it can be an attack point for ransomware and other different type of cyber attacks. Number two is that remote device being patched for Microsoft patches, like I just mentioned, and other third-party patches? Other third-party being your Adobe software suite, Firefox, Java, these type of things. Any one of these vulnerabilities can, be a negative effect on your overall environment. And next one that comes up is antivirus. Does it even have antivirus installed on it? If so, is it current? We ran into a customer recently that we did an audit, a security vulnerability assessment of their network, and found that a number of their devices had antivirus, which is great, but the subscription expired months and months, and on one person years before ago. So that obviously is a major problem. And a lot of this sounds like it's maybe difficult to collect all this information, but you can either collect it manually, or there's plenty of tools out there to help collect the information as far as the device, the type of hardware, the software, the antivirus, the patch status, and we have some tools in our tool belt to kind of help that. Next thing that we like to review is, number one, everything is app driven nowadays, and what exactly do your employees need access to? Are they running something like Office 365 or G Suite for their kind of normal daily business applications, email, files, sharing, etc.? So are these apps going to be installed locally on their machines? Are they going to be remoting into your corporate network? Because maybe the applications that your employees need to use is something like an ERP or a CRM that maybe is not available in a public cloud, and and you're still running it on premise on your servers. And if they are accessing it remotely, how are they getting to that? Are they accessing it through a virtual private network or a VPN you may have heard of, which is a way to make a secure connection to your network, or some other type of web gateway like remote desktop services. The big thing here that we recommend is not only for your Office 365, your VPN, your security gateways, but anything and everything you can apply two-factor authentication on. And if you're not familiar with two-factor authentication, what it is it's very similar. I'm sure pretty much everybody here does online banking. Two-factor authentication is the kind of the third key to it. So you'll have your username, which you know, your password, which you know, and then a code that will be generated and sent to you via either an application on your phone, like a Google Authenticator, or a text message that will be sent to you. So anything that you can enable two-factor authentication on is very important. We've seen numerous attacks during our 24/7 breach management that we have for hackers from other countries trying to get into people's VPNs and into their networks. Their web security gateways and remote desktops is a big target, and Office 365 is even probably a bigger target that we've seen, where hackers from other countries trying to get into people's accounts and get into their data in order to do malicious and illegal things. Going with this, with the hardware and software that you're running on your network, a lot of companies, maybe not all, but a lot of companies need to deal with different compliance, HIPAA compliance for healthcare, PCI for credit cards, SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley for financial. And we have tools to kind of help you with that will scan your networks, your remote devices, and tell you if you have any potential compliance issues and remediation on what you would do to resolve that. Okay. So one of the things that comes up a lot with our clients is that, they said that we have firewalls, we have antivirus, we do patch management, we do all these things. What can we be doing next? And the next phase of what's going on in the security industry and IT industry is managed threat detection and response, or you might see it referred to as MDR. And what that is they'll on your devices, so your computers, your laptops, etc., will install a small agent on the computers, and the agent will be actively looking for or actively hunting for malicious activity. These are things that slip past normal antivirus. There's plenty of methods out there from a hacker's perspective that they can do things to you. They can send you an email, you click a simple link, and they will immediately gain access to your computer. They could sit there. We've seen studies and reports, and even a few things a little bit closer to that they'll sit there. They could be for days, months, and even years, and they're looking for ways to basically steal information and compromise your system from a financial perspective. So MDR, something to look up if you're interested in security, and like myself and a lot of other people in the IT industry. But look up MDR, Managed Threat Detection and Response. And if you're ever interested in kind of adding that next level service, security service to your network, definitely reach out to me and we can talk about it. Next thing that I want to talk about is backups. So backups, when all else fails, because there is no silver bullet that I can sell you I'll tell you that you're going to be 100% secure. So, and if I did have that silver bullet, I'd be a billionaire, but unfortunately I'm not. And the next thing that you really need to look at is your backups. Have you tested your backups and your disaster recovery plans? Are you doing everything you can do to deal with ransomware, where somebody may, like I mentioned earlier, open up an email, click on a link, and all of a sudden all of the information on your server or your cloud server is encrypted? Have you thought about those kind of things, and how are you going to recover from something like that? One of the big things that comes up with our clients is, with all these cloud services, they're under the impression that there's some magical thing going on, and everything is backed up and all that stuff. But Office 365 backup is, if you are on Office 365, definitely something to look into. And you know, there's been a high percentage of losses through Office 365 backup, whether it was email files or other data that can be contained there. So having a good backup plan, testing your backup plan, testing your disaster recovery plan is something definitely to be doing. And you know, maybe with some of the downtime that's going on related to the virus, you know, now would be a good time to do that. And now the last thing I want to talk about, because I'm kind of speeding through things and I apologize, but one of the things we always recommend to our clients, which is a very cost-effective kind of, easy insurance plan, is implementing an employee security awareness training. So what that is there's different platforms out there that we would enroll your company into. All of your employees would get things like simulated phishing attempts. Phishing attempts are things like you've probably received emails from claiming they're from another country and these type of things, and to claim your reward. Or there's bank wiring, where somebody will claim they're a representative of maybe your company or one of your business associates, where they're trying to have you wire money out of your account. There's plenty of different COVID-19 schemes going on, unfortunately. People are utilizing the virus for you know, even more negative things. So enrolling in an employee security awareness training is very cheap security, because your employees are they're your biggest asset, and they could definitely help with some of the things that have gone on. And you know, some of the things you'll learn through an employee awareness training are things about password management and the dark web, and what the dark web is, and you know, how your passwords and your credentials can be sitting out there on the internet, possibly waiting to be stolen. So again, sorry to rattle through things pretty quickly, but there's a lot going on in security. It's probably the biggest thing in IT nowadays, and just wanted to hit some kind of high-level things that you should be considering when owning or managing or being part of a business nowadays. Alrighty, so that kind of gives you my wrap. Justin, back to you.
Thank you so much, Scott. I think it was very helpful to kind of, you know, take a peek under the hood at what's going on the security side. Just to let everybody know, right now we are going to open it up to a bit more broad Q&A. If this is your first time in a Zoom webinar, at the bottom of the screen is a Q&A button where you can either type in your question. Again, if you prefer to just send it into the chat, you know, I'll be monitoring both. One question that, or a couple questions that came in for Scott to start off is, do you have any recommendations for a password manager?
Yeah, definitely. So passwords with you know, employees, users, you know, corporate level are important. So my password recommendation, and you could do some research and Google search on best password recommendations, but our password recommendation is to keep it as a minimum of 8 characters. Use a combination of upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols, and to never use dictionary words within your password. So no, like you know, Bob 1 2 3 4 bang type of stuff. Those are things that can be easily easily hacked using brute force methods, which is one of the methods that a hacker will use. And also make sure you don't use the same password on multiple sites, because if you are exposed and your information rather winds up in the dark web, if you're using the same password or combination of passwords, okay, I'm Bob1234 on LinkedIn, and I'm Bob, 5678 on another website. Those combinations, somebody, if they wanted to, they can figure those out, and you'll have some big exposures. So definitely looking, keeping your passwords, keeping your passwords safe. There's free password management software that you can download. There's online ones in the cloud, which I would be a little cautious about utilizing, but using a password manager to store your passwords is a free one out there. If you're interested, and I can send you the information on it, that a lot of our customers use. But password management is definitely very important nowadays.
Thank you. A question that came in for Doug, with teams being remote, do the people have a feeling that they need to install spyware monitoring, or I don't know, spyware, or just to kind of make sure that people are staying on task? Do you have any recommendations? Is that something that companies should do? And if so, what kind of software should they look at?
So although I am in the technology arena, my advice is not to jump to a technology specifically like a spyware software solution, but to take a step back and figure out, this has come up before, and we engage with the clients about when they say, I want to make sure that somebody is working, I ask the question, what does that mean? Sometimes they want to know just, well, when did they log in? When did they log out? But that doesn't exactly tell you that they were working. So I like to take it back from the technology to the human element and just say, look, what does success look like? Is that defined between the manager and the report? And today, if you do these daily check-ins, and you can do them asynchronously, meaning you don't have to do them live. We used to do that before COVID. Now we do them all live and it only takes 5 to 10 minutes a day. It could be with a team and 5 to 10 minutes a day. Vern Harnish, Gazelles, they talk about the daily stand-up. Huge proponent of a daily meeting, get everybody on the same page. But even for a one-on-one with a manager to a direct report, and it's in the best interest of that employee too, because then the manager and them are on the same page as to what does success look like. So I always try to get people to not just say, hey, because a piece of spyware software, it's really a tool to ultimately fire the person. Like that's what you're really doing. It's an HR, documentation process to get rid of them. So take a step back. I would recommend taking a step back and figure out what is success. Make sure that you both agree on what that success is, and then, check in and, trust but verify, or inspect what you expect is what people say, but, there's a lot of solutions out there, but they are costly. They also require more management time than you would actually think. So they're not a plug and play. But ultimately, there are packages out there that will verify that somebody is active and literally record the screen every 30 seconds or so. And I have seen companies that have used them successfully to protect risk. There was a situation where a company was, somebody was about to try and sell off a whole bunch of their clients, even though they had no ownership to do so. And it was averted by having that kind of logging. So it is something that exists, but I always say that is a last case, last ditch effort.
Great. A question for Vince that came in. You briefly touched upon, installing a physical phone. Do you have a best practice with people working remote? Should they be using an app, through their voice over IP provider? Should they bring a phone home with them?
That's a good
where have you
question.
found success?
It depends on the user. So I answer the question in 3 parts. If you're the main answering point, like an office manager or receptionist and you handle a lot of inbound calls, we recommend getting a physical phone because it gives the end user the most flexibility, just like they're at the office. They could have a phone with a bunch of buttons programmed, and it's very easy to, forward the calls and put calls into voicemails. If you're someone who travels a lot, the mobile app usually will be sufficient to route inbound calls to a smartphone. And if you're the other alternative is I would use the term, it's a cultural thing. So I use a headset with a soft phone for depending on I'll use the term, the type of user. If they're more computer savvy, I would say they should use a headset with a soft phone and bypass the physical phone as well. So there's no wrong or right way. It just has to do with an end user preference and how many inbound calls that person gets a day.
Man, I was just about to say how much I love my telecloud hard phone sitting on my desk at home because it was so simple. But now I feel like that might be a negative that I'm not technology savvy.
If it's set up, you're past the hard part. So,
Yeah.
A question that came in for Scott. How secure is Office 365 and OneDrive? I know a lot of people are in very industries with a lot of sensitive data, and they went from maybe storing stuff on their personal computer to now uploading everything to OneDrive. Are there any kind of concerns around OneDrive?
Yeah, definitely. There's, with any cloud application, you're relying on other people for security. So you're relying on the Microsoft team for security. Our recommendation with OneDrive is not to put up any information on OneDrive that you would consider private, that you want to keep confidential. So, for example, any customers that we have that are using OneDrive, they'll use it for things that are kind of common knowledge, sales documents, things like that, things that they wouldn't be upset about. Everybody's going to be upset, but wouldn't be critical if they were exposed. I don't recommend putting anything on there, accounting related, HR related, things that have a higher sensitivity value on not only OneDrive, and not to pick on Microsoft or OneDrive, but any cloud platform. And if you are going to, definitely get some kind of encryption in place where you're encrypting that data so that if it was exposed, you have that added layer of protection.
Great, thank you so much. Now, before we kind of wrap up the call, I did again want to give a brief spotlight to Homeless Solutions. They're a really amazing nonprofit in Morris County. They're located in Morristown. And for those of you who are not familiar with them, the real ethos behind them is to give a hand up, not a handout. With everything that is going on, unfortunately, a lot of the job losses that we're seeing, this is an organization that's really trying to empower people to get back on their feet. They do work with the working poor in Morris County. And if you are interested in learning a little bit more about their organization or even donating, you can visit them at homelesssolutions.org.
I would just add, fantastic organization. And if you're looking for a good time, they have a great way to be philanthropic. At the end of the year, we were there at this Dream Builders Bash, and it was great. And it was on the 6th of March. March 6th. Just before just under the wire, we were there. Had to be at least 1,000 people, and it was a real giving event. And to hear the stories of how Homeless Solutions has impacted people, they always have at least one or two people there sharing who've been true success stories, really turning things around, and that's great.
Appreciate it. Great. Again, I wanted to thank everybody for joining this webinar today. And if you have any other questions for myself, for Doug, for Vince or Scott, we're going to send out an email with their contact information as well. I know this has definitely, been, very informative to me with everything that's gone on, since March. Our world has been really, changed. I remember early on, customers were asking us, how are you going to, change your service due to COVID? We wound up, installing Zoom as part of giving people an insight into seeing how their hard drives get destroyed. And I think today's, webinar definitely helped me, kind of put a couple of other, things at the forefront in terms of how to better communicate with, my team, how voice over IP can, really streamline communication, and also some of the security threats to be concerned with. So if any of the panelists, if any of the participants have questions for the panelists that, we didn't get to, their email is here. Again, we will send out a follow-up email with their contact information if you want to get in touch with them. And I think at the very least, we all took away that we can change our head into Darth Vader on Zoom to kind of spice things up a little bit. Thank you again. I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to add before we head out.
Yeah, Justin, one more thing, and I just wanted to thank you for putting this all together, and the other guys that participated, and everybody that attended today. For anybody listening right now, if they're interested, we'll do a free dark web scan for them. All they got to do is send me an email. We can scan their business email. We can scan their whole company's email at abccompany.com domain. We'll scan it and we'll give you a report back, let you know what's out there on the dark web that might have your information. So it's usually a pretty interesting report to look at. I haven't come across anybody so far that hasn't had some kind of exposure. So just shoot me an email, either scott.vicari@fortaccess.com or info@fortaccess.com. And we'll get you that information back to you as soon as we can.
Great, thanks so much, Vince. Doug, anything else?
Just want to say thank you. It was a pleasure, and I'm happy to contribute to Homeless Solutions in any way.
Yeah, same. Thank you, Justin. It's good to be here.
Thank you, guys.
And,
Actually, real quick, we do have one last one. I'll kind of throw it up to both Doug and Scott. Have you guys had experience with Google Drive in terms of a security, threat at all with any of your customers?
The same thing that Scott mentioned earlier about the two-factor. Two-factor is the key, for whether it's Microsoft or otherwise. Implementing the two-factor basically prevents someone from being able to get to your information. So once you have, if you're going to use like OneDrive or you're going to use Google Docs, just implement the two-factor, because then they would have to get your account, your password, and a two-factor, which is very, very difficult. The other thing I would just add is don't use use an authenticator app and not the SMS method, which is just sending you a text message, because stealing text numbers is very easy to do these days.
Yep. Great. Thanks so much. Everybody, again, thank you for coming out. This was a great experience to put it on. I hope everybody took away, something from this. And if it's something that you guys have an interest in, we can continue to do webinars like this on different topics. So we'll be reaching out for some feedback. Again, have a safe day and enjoy Memorial Day weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.